having fun. Sounds good. Call to order the Eldridge City Council Committee of the Whole meeting on Monday, February 3rd, 2025 at 6:01 p.m. Roll call.
Blackwell. Campbell.
Present.
Collins.
Present.
Dockery.
Present.
Yossi.
Present.
Look for motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Yossi, second by Dockery to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. New business, fiscal year 26 tax levy discussion. Havana?
Thank you, Mayor. We have our Public Works Director here tonight to go through the funds for Public Works and road use and sewer department. Just a couple quick notes before we get into that discussion. We'll talk more about the tax levy tonight as well. Our proposed tax levy needs to be into the Department of Management system by March 5th so that they can send the notice out to the county to mail out to the residents. And our hearing will then be held on April 7th. So we will have the February 17th meeting, which we are also having Mayor Gallagher and Bob Decker will be, or Decker Plain will be there to discuss goal setting, and then we will have our March 3rd Committee of the Whole and City Council meeting prior to the deadline. So we'll have to focus on the tax levy and determine what proposed tax levy rate the City Council wants to send into the Department of Management. We'll start with the Public Works funds for tonight and go through those while we have Tony here to talk through those items and what some of the equipment lists are and what the budgeted fund lines are for the Public Works and Sewer Department. Start with the street department expenditures. That would be Fund 001210. Just looking down through the requested line for the 26 budget year. The wages, just like the other department heads, at the budgeted amount, the 4% increase is what was used just for the baseline for the budget, but we could adjust accordingly. Tony, the change in the wage line is due to the retirement at the end of this fiscal year, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Brian will be retiring here in the next few months, and he could potentially have some vacation leave that gets paid out. So that's why last year's wages amount was higher than normal to account for that.
All right, the FICA and IPERS are based off of the budgeted amount for the wage and part-time and overtime lines together. Looking at the insurance, we budgeted for a 10% increase for fiscal year 26. Anything else of note in this budget or any questions?
How much was our insurance increase this year?
We don't have the renewals yet from what our initial amount was with these insurance companies, so we budgeted for that 10% increase.
Last year we did.
Last year was our first year with these companies. We haven't had our renewals for this next year yet. Any questions on the street department expenditures?
Tony, what about your wish list? The street department, anything?
Those items will come up, under the equipment replacement fund on the next page.
The dump truck you're gonna use half for the sewer department?
It could be, yes.
The next fund would be the traffic department expenditures. That's Fund 001240. Again, for the budgeted amount for fiscal year 26, these are just slight increases from fiscal year 25 just to account for material cost increase.
So that's a 15%, 17%.
For which line, Brian?
For traffic department from our estimated expenditures for this year.
So the estimated, we need to go back and recalculate some of those to get what the true estimated for fiscal year 25 is going to be. So I'll get an updated version out to you from that, but we're just looking at the budgeted items for fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26.
I always look at what we actually spent through to see if the budgeted number's too high or not. Up above, under overtime wages estimated, here again, third line down is only $1,225.
Yeah, we still need to go through the estimated and update some of these numbers. So usually when we don't have those, we'll average the last 3 years of actuals that we have. That's how we project the estimated lines for budgeting purposes at this point. So we would look at where they're at and double where they were at as of January 1st for the projected. So we just need to go back through some of these estimated columns and get those filled in. Any other questions on traffic department expenditures? Next fund would be snow removal, that's 001250. Salt and sand is in the road use fund. We started that last fiscal year. We continued that again with this fiscal year. Those are, road use funds are eligible to use for your salt and sand snow removal. Snow fence stays the same, and then just put in 3,000 just to cover if there's any need to rent any equipment for snow removal.
Tony, with the winter we're having, I know it's still early. You anticipate to have a salt shed full at the end of the year, or we still have that 10% over we can buy at the price you're at now?
We do. We've already had 2 shipments brought in, so we have, I think, 500 of our 600 ton allotment has already been brought in or used on site. It's been a light winter, but we've had a lot of ice, small ice events. We've actually gone through a lot more salt than we really would like to at this point. We'll see how February goes.
I think they're gonna be salt on Wednesday again.
Could be twice on Wednesday, yeah, the morning and the evening.
The next fund would be General Equipment Replacement Fund. It's Fund 002. For fiscal year 26, this has a couple of the wish list items for streets and equipment used in parks.
I'm sorry, better which one again?
Fund 002, the General Equipment Replace Fund.
What tab?
last one on tab 2, last page on tab 2,
Okay.
or second to last.
Okay.
There's a request for an F-450 with a salt spreader and plow, and a Deere 4x2 Gator, and an ABI field drag.
And the police equipment, where would the cars be then?
Right now, in the budget, I have the cars, for the police, is listed in their fund, in Fund 110, just to prevent any confusion with the two different departments with general equipment. We can account for those either way. We can move that amount over to the general equipment and purchase all of the equipment out of here. For now, I just have them separated as we go through the budget to be able to identify them a little bit easier. There is a transfer in of $130,000 right now that is accounted for out of the general fund admin budget. There are some options on where the $130,000 can come in from. We do have a capital streets project fund that we put $25,000 into every year at a sales tax, but we haven't been expending any of our capital projects out of there for any of our street projects in quite some time, so it's just building up money, so it just basically creates another set of reserves. We've got that in our road use and sales tax already, so we could use some of the money that's built up in there to purchase the streets equipment rather than the general fund, if that's something that the council wants to consider and take that burden off the general fund.
Yeah, we can move the squads, we have a line item in this field over here. And actually, the F-450 with salt spreader, we probably, depends on where we end up on our road use fund, that can come out of that too, or transfer funds from the road use to this, so that they're all together.
Yep, we can definitely transfer it over when we make all the changes to the budget.
Tony, two-wheel drive Gator, good enough for out there, or would you like something other in case you need it on the streets or sewer, or?
No, we have the UTVs that you guys approved last year, the Can-Am, and the electric department has one as well that we could use. So this is just the basic John Deere Gator. We've got two down there now, but they're very, very old. We don't even know what years they are. They've been around so long. And then the field drag would replace the Sam Pro machine that we have. The ABI field drag is the same one that Long Grove has and the high school softball field has. So we've used them before, so we know it's something that will work really well for us.
Is there a reason the 450 versus the 550?
Not necessarily. We had 450, so it would be a replacement for that.
Might be something to consider. Cost isn't really different. It gives you a little bit better GVW. Because I know it's all, it'd be a tailgate spreader, right? Or would it be a V-Box?
It'd be V-Box. Yeah.
Is that respecting stainless beds now?
Those are, the ones we have the steel beds, I believe, but I think this one has the stainless. That's what we switched pretty much everything is by default to.
Makes them last a lot longer.
Going to 550, would the plow that's on the 450 right now fit on that, or would you have to buy all new plows?
We would have to buy new plows, yeah, depending on what brand we got to. We don't even know if the plows would fit or not.
What year is the 450?
I don't remember. I tried to print the equipment list off before I came up. I didn't get it done, so.
Is the plow in decent shape on it?
Yeah, the plows and the spreaders are in good shape. We don't have it accounted for to trade in right now because we don't have right now, we don't have any extra spare snow equipment. Everybody's got a truck and everything that we have goes out on anything really 2 inches or over. So we would really like to kind of have at least one, maybe two spare trucks so that when one's down or one's in the shop, that person doesn't have to come up with some alternative. There's still a truck for them to get out and do their routes. Because once one or two of the trucks are down, we start rerouting and redesigning where everybody has to go.
The head unit on the truck itself will have to change on the new truck, but everything also mounted into it, so as long as they're the ultra mounts, because you guys are running the westerns, so it's just a matter of the plow will hook up to old or new.
But could we put a bigger plow on the 550?
What do you run now?
I think they're the nines. And the
You
450s.
can do a 10, you can put a 10-footer on if you wanted. It's not uncommon, but normally 992.
And these are nice. These are the ones that go out like on an early morning when there's just a little bit of ice. We'll send these smaller trucks out to do the school routes and stuff instead of getting the big trucks out. Because a lot of times our guys do a really good job of washing everything and keeping it in good shape. So we don't have to get a big truck out and fill up salt just to do 20 minutes of salting. So these small trucks work really good for that.
Should virtually be around the same cost though for a 450 versus 550. I'd consider it because you're getting 2.5 or at least 1.5–2 ton extra capacity or DVW.
Yeah, if it's approved, we'll certainly go both ways and see what our best option is.
Brian, will that have the same power plant in it?
The suspension is really the only difference.
It's just heavier duty? We run 550s as service trucks.
It's just, it takes you from, I think, 16.5 to 19.5, so for me, it's a no-brainer if it costs the same or within a few $100.
Any other questions for that fund? Next one will be the Fund 004 for the Park Board. So there is a missing revenue and expenditure in this one that just got inadvertently left off when we were putting the budget together. There should be under the miscellaneous in the revenue, 2,000 for the outfield banner revenues. And then it would be the same for the miscellaneous administration expense. The fund that ends in 6601, that would have the 2,000 for those outfield banners. Tony, any items of note for the park board fund?
Nothing really in here. The reason we're basically decreasing the budget from fiscal year 25 to 26 is because of the concession stands. This year we have an RFP out now for some outside of the city to manage the concession stands this summer. So therefore we don't have as many revenues, nor do we have as many expenses. So the overall budget has gone down.
The transfers in, should we just leave it 65,000 like it's been? Or did that just get caught up in an automatic increase?
So originally, I think the ask for this one was 80,000. And so in getting the budget to balance initially, we were able to do 67. There may be room to move that up if that's something that the council wants to consider. We do have some adjustments to make on the funds that we've already reviewed that will free up some additional funds in the general fund to be able to transfer over to the park board. So that is something that if the council wants to consider doing more, we can do that. Or not, we can leave it at the 65. That would be.
Well, my point is, if we put that 65, we just added in 2,000, revenues would still be at the amount listed, 1057.
The revenue and we'll have to add the same expense for the expenditure, so the revenue and expenditure line will both change equally when we put that, the outfit banner 2,000, because it'll have to go into the expenses as well.
Sure, we just have to adjust some of them. Sheridan Meadows spent 2,000, two of them down 1,000 apiece to make it balance.
Any questions on the Park Board 004 fund?
Have you guys gotten some RFPs, RFPs back for the concession yet?
Not yet, not that, I'm not aware if we've received any. I know the last date to submit them is, I believe, February 13th. Sound right? So I don't believe anything's come in yet, though.
In the event that you don't get any in, or you don't like them, what's the next step?
So we moved the next park board meeting back to the Monday after the Friday that these are due. So in that case, then or the following Tuesday, the park board would have discussions on what an alternative would be.
Is there direction from the council for the transfer in from the general fund, whether to change that to 65 or to increase?
Balance. The 65 and 2 is 67, and that balances it, right?
Well, we'll have the additional 2
Right.
somewhere in expenses, maybe not. I don't know what they'd use that revenue from the banners on. Or
So,
we could just leave the expenses the way they are and use that 2,000 for something within the expenses of the park board.
That was my thought.
so we'll have to rebalance the general fund too, because there's quite a few adjustments to be made in the general fund. So there will be a lot of readjusting and rebalancing to do, just for consideration. The 2,000 in this fund is coming from the general fund, so if we want to contribute more out of the general fund, that there will be opportunity to balance that. If not, if you want to drop the revenue to the 65 and put the 2,000 somewhere else, and it's up to you too. But there will be additional funds freeing up in the general fund as we work through some of the adjustments that have been requested so far.
Tony, you originally asked for 80. What were you thinking? What was your thinking behind that?
At the time it was, I didn't have the numbers for insurance and things like that. So once those were fine tuned by Nevada and her staff, then we were able to lower the transfer back down. So it wasn't, we didn't cut anything.
Gotcha.
I just didn't have all the information that they had.
Okay.
Next fund will be road use. That's Fund 110. So the per capita this year is estimated at $140.50 per capita. We, for the purpose of budgeting, we drafted the number at $139.50 just to keep the budget conservative, and put a little bit in there for any surplus equipment, scrap metal, just a minimal amount, just to have something in the budget for that. The biggest item, I think, on this budget is the approximate 1.2 million, put in there to cover the South First Street overlay. That project is currently out to bid, so we don't have those numbers in for construction yet, but, this number in there is a placeholder. Tony, do you want to go through some of your budget items, like the cold fuse starter kit?
Sure, so the cold fuse starter kit it's a kit that we can do crack sealing with cold asphalt instead of having the hot trailer that you pull around. So that way when we do our own street patches and stuff, we're able to crack seal those right away instead of hiring an outside company to come in and have to do those. I think that whole setup is $6,000 for the machine and everything that comes with it. For the salt, we are looking to we're budgeting for 700 ton for next year. That will depend, of course, on how much we have left over this year. So worst case scenario would be 700 ton. We could potentially buy less depending on how the rest of the year goes. And then we have a single axle dump truck on there. We haven't got a new dump truck in quite a while. Some of ours are getting quite aged, and we've got Max Force engines that we've been dealing with for quite some time now. So we are looking at but we got some quotes from International and from Peterbilt on a single axle dump truck replacement. So those are quite a few months, lead time. So it sounds like we would be able to get it in the fiscal year if we ordered it. July 1st.
We put a belly blade on that too?
Yes, yeah, they'll have the belly blades, the plows, and the salt spreaders. We've got Henderson in the quote, which we typically use. We would, if approved, we would probably look at getting some other quotes too to see who else is out there to serve.
So if we look at the 450, 550 and pick this up, and I'm assuming you're not going to get rid of one of the single axles, then you have your two spares you talked about?
That's our goal, yes. I think one of our dump trucks, I think, is a 94.
Old County truck.
Yeah, so that one, it's pretty reliable, but it might become our standard.
So that 246 is fully outfitted with belly plow, front plow, tailgate spreader, or no spreader?
No V-box.
Box also?
Yeah, stainless steel box. The chassis is 114,000, and then the box and the snowplow package is 119,000. And then we have 10,000 in there in case the price increases before we're able to order it.
There again, should we pull that out and put it to equipment replacement and do the transfer of that amount to the equipment replacement?
We could transfer it into equipment replacement. It's an eligible purchase under road use, so we could either fund wherever we want to account for that. Either way is fine.
My question is, can we legally take money out of the road use, put it to the equipment replacement that it's earmarked for the truck to road use?
We can, as long as we are able to illustrate that that money got spent on a road use eligible item. So typically we leave them in here just because the fund is easier to track when they're all in the same fund lines for that road use. But as long as we are able to justify, if we need to, that it was spent on something that's eligible for road use funds, then we could transfer it over to general equipment, as long as we just maintain proper documentation.
Because with our reserves there, we could move half of the 450 or 550, whatever, for road use too, for that truck. The other half from streets, or the other half from sewer. They've got all the money in equipment replacement. You have to use it for something down the sewer plant, don't you?
We could, yes.
One other item of note for road use is last year we did anticipate using $374,000 out of reserves. We did not need that. We made some changes to the street improvements that were planned for this fiscal year, so we ended up not looking and not projected to use anything out of our reserves in the current fiscal year, but we do have 790,000 pulled from reserves in fiscal year 26 to be able to cover the equipment and the South First Street overlay project.
If we move ahead with Shelley's thing on sidewalks on the west side of First Street, can we use any of this money for that?
I would have to just confirm that. I believe there are times where the sidewalks would qualify as that road use, but when they're in conjunction with a street project, I don't know that sidewalks themselves, standalone, are eligible under road use funds, but I can confirm for sure. I don't believe that they are.
I don't know the answer to that question. That's what I'm asking.
Well, and you bring up sidewalks, because that's something I'd like to see us, at least on First Street, tackle, if there's a way to do it this year. Knowing that it's probably gonna be double what their engineering estimate was because of the extra work that's gonna have to be done.
And that, we'll probably see that within the next 16 months, and that's what this budget's all about.
Right.
Any other questions on the road use fund?
Tony, do you still need the hot asphalt trailer if you're gonna buy that old one? Can we sell that to the county?
That, oh, no, that gets used a lot. That's for all of our, two different things. That's for our patches.
I know, I'm just trying to see if I
Okay.
can.
And now we can patch in, do our cracks in with the small stuff that we do.
I tried.
When we get to the discussion for sales tax, there is, I believe we have about 5 million in reserves in sales tax too. That is a pretty similar use to our general fund. It's fairly unrestricted, so there's some opportunity to use some of those funds as well for sidewalk projects that would absolutely qualify for those funds. Next fund for tonight is the 301 Park Improvements Fund.
Six.
This one's just a transfer in an expenditure. There's no defined capital projects yet by the park board that we're aware of. Transfer in, the initial request would be 150,000. This transfer comes out of our sales tax fund each year. Right now, balance, just getting an initial balance. I transferred in 125,000 out of the sales tax fund. There is 25,000 that goes into the streets project capital fund. That's again the one that we have not been using on projects in the past years. So we could potentially transfer 150 in for the park improvements and not make the transfer for the street capital projects fund this year. If that is something the council would like to consider.
We've got a question. If we don't have a list from them, I don't know when they're gonna come up with the list. Why are we transferring 125 or even 150? In the past years, it's been 100. We don't know where it's going.
Well, they have, we're doing the budget discussions next park board meeting, and they have a lengthy capital improvement list, but the funding is what steers them on which way to go. So there's lots of things they would like to do and improve on, a lot of existing things that need attention, and then a few new things. It depends on funding, so.
Oh, I understand that, but you gotta understand my point. We're just raising it, we don't know what it's going for.
Yep, and we can certainly get their capital lists over to you.
Is the detention pond down there on their list at all?
No, that's not part of it.
So this is where I'd like to see, I know we've got to do something, we can't keep just discussing it, we've got to come up with some funds that are set aside, not knowing exactly what it's going to take, but we've got to solve that problem down there.
You doing Hickory Creek?
The Sherman
Oh,
Meadows.
sure, Mills, right.
On our excavator.
What's that?
long arm excavator and do it over 2 years.
And I think dredging it is ultimately, I don't know what else we're gonna be able to do with the rules involved, but we're gonna have to set money aside to do it. And if we don't set it aside in this budget, we're talking another year and a half before it gets touched. I just don't wanna see that.
We should have the report back from, regarding the wetlands delineation, this week yet. And then, once we have that back and we know what some of the restrictions are and what we can and cannot do and what permitting is gonna be required, then we could, consider working with, a land architect or, a company that would be able to give us some guidance on different projects that we can do that are within those permitting standards and, what options, I guess, that we have in order to beautify that area and see what uses we can create with it.
I recommend we go, because the Corps controls that, we go to the Corps and apply for a maintenance permit. Maintenance permits are good for 10 years if you do something about every other year. You won't be able to expand it, but you can clean it out.
Right. Well, I know one of the rules was that you couldn't take the dozer and push the dirt up where we needed it, but if we take it and put it in trucks, even if it's city-owned trucks, I know if we drive it out around the backside, then that's legal. So is that something that you could foresee helping out with some of your larger trucks?
Yeah, right, I think it down there, sure.
Good for your regulations. But a 10-year maintenance permit is the way it is. It's less burdensome to acquire. We don't have to worry about clams or any of that on a pond. I hope.
And I think the 150 figure is a fair figure when you look at all the projects they have to get done. I would advocate, and I know they would advocate for the 150. They want to do something like Hickory Creek. Now they decided they don't want to rent that, they want to share meadows.
I don't disagree with you, but there's nothing on there.
I agree that, but they're going to meet and they'll bring you a list back, and so I think that's the plan.
No, I'm not opposed to it.
Right.
This year's a little unique. This is coming to this group first, just because we pushed their meeting back to come out of RFP there, so they will have a list of, they have a list, it's existing, it's ongoing, so we can get it out.
Can you email us that list once you get it?
We have it, yeah, we can do it tomorrow.
Because we might look at it and want to give them more.
You never know.
You never know.
So what else do you want to cut? No, if they can justify it, I'm not opposed.
Any other questions on the park improvements fund? Next one is the 310 street projects. This one's similar to the park improvements. This one is a transfer in. It comes from our sales tax. We typically put $25,000 in each fiscal year. There's not a lot spent out of here typically. We've currently got a balance. We'll be at $230,000 sitting in that capital fund as of the end of fiscal year 25. So we can move $25,000 in, again, out of sales tax, or if the council chooses, we can put that $25,000 towards the park improvements fund, once you see that list. That's an option to consider. This would also be another fund that we could use to purchase that equipment that I referred to earlier, if we don't want to take that out of the general fund.
I think we should take that 25,000 out, transfer in for the sales tax. I mean, if we're sitting with $230,000 in reserves and nothing to spend it on, that 25,000 from sales tax should go somewhere else. Just leave that zero this year.
So it would make no difference if you, let's say you pulled 230,000 that's sitting there out and put it towards equipment, or if you used it towards sidewalks, that would make no difference, would it?
No, it's coming from our general fund, so there's not restrictions on if we wanted to use it on something else that wasn't, a capital project in streets, but for these funds, not being restricted, sidewalks would be an eligible use under the street capital project fund, so this could be another fund that we use to start those, sidewalk projects. The Scott County Health Department is currently doing a full community inventory on any areas that are missing sidewalks and what that infill plan would look like, or I guess at least the areas that we need that sidewalk infill, so that can assist us in putting together a plan if the council wants to move forward with putting sidewalks throughout the community in those areas that they're missing. So we should hopefully have that soon, but yes, this would be a fund that we could use for sidewalks.
My point is to take 25,000 out from sales tax, and then take 25,000 out of cash reserves and put in a line item for, to balance it, so you still have 25,000 as scheduled for minor projects, for capital projects.
So not transfer anything in, but you still want to have a $25,000 expenditure in the fiscal year?
Yeah, so the balance will go from 230,173 to 205,173 at the end of the fiscal year. We're not a bank.
Tony, how much sidewalk, if it's easy sidewalk, are you guys comfortable doing in-house? As an example, nothing on First Street, because that's too large, but West LeClaire Road, there's about a block and a half that's undone on the south side there. Looks fairly flat.
We're typically we're in the panel range. Our guys are used to, so we're 4, 5, 6 panels is usually about as far as we typically go. We probably could go further, but it's not our specialty, and we don't have that many forms, and we take additional resources that we don't have.
Does the high school have anything through the tech center for masonry for doing concrete, or
I'm aware of.
might be a good summer project for them to learn that stuff next year?
But speaking of the high school, I would like to reach out to North Scott School District and have some discussion with them about maybe helping us out with some of those sidewalks along their property. I noticed 3 small kids, they're cutting through from Ed White along the old softball field and going in that drainage area and walking along that ditch, and it was very sketchy, to say the least. So,
Not to bring up sore subjects, South Fifth Street's a mud pit.
is it?
All the cars parking in the mud.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
We were gonna talk about a study.
Yep. Which Zach is supposed to be getting back with us on that any day.
He said he'd have something by next meeting.
So for the street project fund, is the direction from council to use 25,000 from reserves and leave a $25,000 expenditure? Is there any directive to use any of this for any of the equipment, or do we want that to continue to come out of the general fund?
Well, let's wait till we see the list from the park board, because that might be the 25,000 negative to the 150. I mean, just leave it idle on the sales tax for right now until we get through this.
Yep, I just meant for the equipment, purchase that was coming out of, the general fund administration. There's a, to budget it for the, which,
130,000.
yeah. So is that could come out of this fund for the, salt spreader and plow, or we could leave it coming out of the general fund.
It doesn't.
When you come out of road use and not this one?
It could come out of road use, and it can come out of the general fund as well. The reason that I had asked her or proposed it was because we've got 200,000 of reserves sitting here that we don't typically expend anything out of this fund, and we're building reserves, and our general fund and our sales tax and our road use. So this is just another pot of reserves that's sitting there, and we could use it to fund that equipment and not have that $110,000 burden on the general fund this year, and to be able to use that for another department or another expense.
We could take the 450 or 550 out of it, transfer that over to equipment replacement for that one vehicle.
The 450 or 550.
He's
Got
got
one
one
for
for
246,000. And he's got budgeted for 246.
We could take part of that out of here.
But we don't have price now, so we might have to do that.
So take part of
I
the,
thought your mainly could use for the F-450 or 550 for the 140.
The 114.
He's got it
We
as
could take that
450
out.
under his equipment request.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
114,000,
Yeah.
and then he's got the 246,000.
I would say the 114,000 would.
Yeah, the smaller dump truck.
Right.
And then that would still leave that balance around $100,000.
We could use that to, maybe for some of the police squads.
Squad.
yeah, it'll free up that amount out of the general fund to be used to something else.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the money going into the equipment replacement on the general fund, but we need to start building that up too.
Okay, I think the last one we have, well, Tony's here, if we want to go through and, hit on the ones that are not routine, so that we have a little bit of time to touch on the tax levy tonight as well. Tony, do you want to walk through the sewer budget? That's Fund 610, and anything out of the norm?
Sure, so the revenues are pretty similar to last year's. We're proposing a 0% increase in sewer fees this year. And then on the expenditure sides, very similar to last year, not much change. We do have 200,000 proposed to go over to sewer equipment replacement, which we'll see on the next page. And then for some projects, we've got, we'd like to get a spare pump for the Buttermilk lift station. That's the only lift station that we have that we don't have a spare pump for. And then we've got some control upgrades that we would like to do. We're still running on a little bit of the 2008, but a lot of it's the 2018 upgrade hardware and software that are we use Tri-City Electric for our IT on the SCADA system and stuff, and they're recommending that we upgrade that to the newest licenses, the newest equipment, just because it runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's never been off, since it got turned on in 2018, all that stuff.
Tony, I was serious about the dump truck. Is there a portion of that we can bring out of the sewer replacement fund?
You could, yeah, we do use the dump trucks now with the sewer. On the next page with the equipment replacement on the 614 fund, which shows the 200,000 going in, and then we are requesting 200,000 going out. We have a second end loader in there, identical to the one we have now. That end loader is probably the most versatile piece of equipment that we have, and it is used on a daily basis, and multiple departments are always looking for it. So we're proposing to get a new one that would stay primarily at the sewer plant for the sludge purposes, but then could also come up as a second piece of equipment either for busy times and specifically for snow removal.
No, I'm just curious if we could take 50,000 or 100,000 out of sewer equipment place for a portion of the dump truck.
Yeah, that's up to you guys. The equipment replacement in the sewer is healthy, and we've been building it up. We talked about that last year specifically because we knew we wanted to get it in order. At the time, I thought we would be dipping in reserves to get that, but the way it balanced out now, we're not using the reserves for that.
So maybe 50,000 is a safe number.
You can, yeah, if you'd like to.
Well, that'd be 25% or 20% of the new truck.
that a deer or cat?
Deer. Says it's not a 644.
No,
308?
3. I have it here.
A lot of their numbers are 44, so it might be a 344.
It's a 324.
Well, the nice thing is that you do get another one down there, and we have 2 of them. The odds of the street department having to rent one in the wintertime is less.
Right, that would be, and this one, if we keep it down at the sewer primarily, we intend for it to have a lot longer life because it's not in the salt and stuff like the current one we have.
Well, you could use it just for pushing snow and use the other one for loading salt.
Yeah, for sure, the new one would
You don't
be
want
in
that with
salt.
salt.
Right.
So that's a possibility. Taking 50 grand out of there.
Is that the same size loader that you have on your rental? That you guys would normally rent? Or would you normally rent?
Normally, if we have to rent, it's bad enough that we'll take anything we can get. So the last time we rented one, we actually rented one from Engelbrecht's, which was quite a bit bigger than when we had.
How's not the back street, how's the snow blower doing?
Snowblower's in good shape.
What type of mower is that you're looking at?
And so the lawnmower, this is going to be, it's one of the larger lawnmowers that has the wings that pull down. It'll be used at both parks and sewer. So we have a new zero turn that we got in this year's budget. And then we need that new larger mower. So we're kind of just sharing mowers back and forth between the departments. So we're able to use the smaller one that we got this year, possibly at sewer, and then use this one down at parks more.
The Batwing mower?
Yes.
Cab or no cab? Probably no cab at that
Okay.
price.
You're gonna get rid of, do you still have that old Toro?
It's the John Deere one that we would possibly replace it with.
That mower be a diesel then too?
It is a diesel, yes.
You only have 2 more years, I think, on the 2015 bonds.
I believe that's correct. One more year after this one.
I think 2027 is the last year on that. And you'll increase some in your revenues just because the homes increasing.
Right,
It
yep.
will be significant.
Yeah, a little bit. We did that. We met with our financial advisor on that, John Burmeister, and he gave us some projected numbers of this year. We all agree that it's 0% increases right for this year.
Good.
Any other questions on the sewer fund, or we can move on to tax levy? Thanks, Tony. Okay, so the tax levy, coming back to that discussion, again, that proposed number has to be ready to enter into the Department of Management website by March 5th. So that gives us 2 more meetings for that discussion. The budget for the basis, or the basis for the budget is the 8.01. And if you have that packet with you that we printed off for you at the last meeting, that's got some different options available, I think from $7.93 up to $8.06 or something close to that, as far as what we'll bring in at each of those different levy points. After review of those, does the council have questions or want to seek further information or a request for the tax levy?
Other than bragging rights and a feather in our cap, what's the benefit of having one of the lowest tax rates in the state? What's been the thought process behind that?
As a taxpayer, I write a smaller check twice a year to Scott County.
That's a good answer, Brian, but I think that we have a lot of expenses that we have to take care of as well. And just as a point of reference at our town hall meeting, and I know that it was a small sample, and most of them were senior citizens, and when we were talking, they all said, raise the taxes. And if we just do it minimally, I think I think it's been a bragging right for you guys to say that we got the lowest tax rate in Scott County, and we were 84th out of the 85th. And I don't think people move here because of our taxes. I think people move here because of the school district and a way of life. And I think that we just need to increase it more than just a little bit.
2 years ago, we had a very sizable tax increase. Tony, you were part of that. What did we raise it, 60 cents?
I don't remember what the was.
It was substantial, though.
You're talking about 41 cents. Right.
41 cents 2 years ago?
That was back in fiscal year '23.
And then from that, we went another 55 cents.
Believe. After that was 3 cents, and then this year would be 3 cents.
I just think it's more than 3 cents. Right? I think that we have a lot of things. We also talked about at that meeting, city staffing. I think we need to think about additional city staffing for City Hall. I think we're putting more and more on Jeff, and I think we need to look at that as something to seriously consider. In talking to other, some of the department heads and other people, I mean, they've all said that, not all, but most of them have said, we would have had more incremental staffing over even the last 10 years, not the last 3 or 4. I think we're paying the price now for some of the things we didn't get done in the past.
Name some of them.
Well, I think if you look at street stuff, and I think that parks could do more stuff.
I guess it's a philosophical difference. What's the core function of the city?
We want to be able to provide amenities for our residents as well.
That is true, but our core
And look at
function.
that, look at the police department, how much they had a big request from the police department 2 weeks ago, or last week.
Just because they have a big request doesn't mean we have to give it to them.
But maybe we do, I don't know, I'm asking the
That's
question.
a 17% increase. The request to buy every policeman a squad car, I'm not for that.
I'm not saying that I am, but I'm just saying, I think we could look at a little bit more than just 3 cents.
Well, that's why everybody gets a vote, Scott.
Exactly.
If you want to talk about increases, I truly think we need to take our budget and take a look at what all these numbers do at a 3.5% increase in salaries. I know Nevada said you got it from the league, but as I said last meeting, last year was 2.2%. The last 7 years in our audit we got last year, we said it was 2.2% over the last 7 years. We've been given 3 to 4%. So I'd like to see what that is. I mean, if you look at the total wages that we charge the residents of this town over the last 10 years, a little scary. Right now, we spend about I'm just talking round numbers, $100,000 every 2 weeks. So what's that come out to per year in salaries?
Do the math.
2.6. Okay, if you take 0.5% of that, I'd like to have 0.5% of that back in the general revenue. So Scott, you can do more things with it.
So, Scott, you brought up the staffing, and that's one thing that we've talked about. And my biggest concern is I've watched for the little over a year that I've been here, and it seems like our key staff has been working more than what I would look at as being a salaried employee. And my biggest concern is burnout. We've had the discussion of looking at the jobs. We're realizing now that with the staffing that we've had, the boxes were not being completely filled over the past several years. That's why we had audits that looked the way they did. And I don't know how we can't not look at increasing staffing, at least in the office. Whether that's, we discussed part-time to start out to see what those needs are, or up to full-time, but it's something that I think we should, consider having that buffer in our budget. And in regards to taxes, Brian, I know you're not a fan. My mind operates differently. I look at the needs and what people are requesting and what they want, and I automatically focus on, we want to complete those needs. And then you move to the wants, the things like the parks. And again, I'm all for growing the parks and other amenities, but you've got to get the needs done first. And I've heard a lot of people talking that we're not doing the improvements to the roads and the sidewalks and other infrastructure in Elbridge. So my mind says, let's find a way to get those projects. I know we're getting ready to kick off the goal setting of what needs to be done, but in my mind, if that means that we've got to increase those taxes more than what is normal, I'm personally okay with that. The people that I've talked to are personally okay, but I know it's not ideal. Raising taxes is something that people always, caution you against. But right now, my biggest goal over taxes is making sure that infrastructure is where it's sustainable, and then we can keep moving forward at that pace to keep up with it.
We currently have $2.5 million in the road use fund. We currently have roughly $5 million in the sales option tax. Money's there without taxing the people more. In the past, now you guys haven't been on very long, in the past, going through this process, we always ask department heads on staff. Have we not, Tony? So don't tell me we're not staffed up, because we always ask the department heads their opinion if they needed more help. If they said no, we didn't hire another person. If they said yes, we either hired them part-time or we hired an extra one until somebody retired. We looked at that. So the council as a body is not understaffed, and we've gone off the recommendation of our department heads. And I have not heard anybody in our department heads right now yet ask for more staffing. If they ask for it, they always got it.
I'll ask it again then, because I have Nevada and Jeff. Do you think that we could use more staffing in what you guys do?
In City Hall, I think we're reaching a point where we need to plan out a process moving forward.
Is there a place in this proposed budget asking for another individual? And if not, why? If you think you need one.
We haven't gotten to those fund lines yet, but there is a place where we would like to request some sort of funding for additional help, whatever that looks like, for administration and moving around some of those general fund budget numbers, and being able to take some of the burden off of the general fund would certainly help with that request. But it is in there. It is something that we could use. We're also aware of the fact that there's a public facilities project that we're trying to work on getting a plan together for, because we don't have the adequate space for the staff that we have and where we're going to put them. So that compounds the issue, but we do have, there's definitely enough work to fill the time with additional staff.
But my point to Ryan and Scott, nowhere in this document presented to us is there a request for adding another person.
There is, we just haven't gone through those funds yet, because we haven't made it through the admin and the finance and the community development and sales tax funds. There is,
Does it say for asking, or just increased line items, or asking for another individual?
there's increased line items that would be part of that presentation and those highlights for that department when we get to that point.
So, I mean, don't chastise me and former councils for not adding people.
Brian, so the other thing, again, we're new. what is your comfort level? We've got those reserves there. If there's capital improvement projects that we know we need, rather than a larger increase on taxes, how much of those reserves do you feel is able to be used comfortably then?
Well, we need to keep a minimum of 25% of our expenditures in cash reserves, somewhere in that range, 20 to 25%. Because of the way the payments come in from the county, we receive payments twice a year. So we need enough to cover from one payment to another. So yes, we do have to keep, we can't spend it all down, but there is a line there. You know, and if somebody's got a project, we should be talking about it.
I appreciate all the input here, but the question was, where should they start with, like a basis? And it was 8.01. When I talked to Jeff and Nevada about that last week, because it was conservative increase again, and we do have good reserves, but LeClaire Road is failing pretty bad. It's more worse now than it was before winter started, from Casey's over to Cabos. That hasn't even been talked about. I know we're waiting to hear back on what South Fifth Street would look like and see what the school would maybe participate in, dealing with redoing the sidewalk and doing something with the road that's failing down there by the intersection of Sheridan Drive. As was brought up, thanks to the ARPA funds, we have purchased land, but we do not have any funds to actually build a building for public works. And at some point in time, we need to address the white elephant of the city hall building and police station, because if we continue to add staff, which I believe we do need, we have no room to put them. I think the addition to the remodeling of the basement has maxed out city hall. So when you put that all together, I don't think we should raise it 30 or 40 cents, but I think for her to work on the budget, I think 8.01 is conservative. Maybe we should look at having her, because this is still preliminary, that we should have her punch in a number of like 8.04, 8.05 for right now. Because we have to plan for the future, not just for today.
I'm not opposed to it, as this is drafted right now with the 3 cent. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we have to hold it the same, but I want to know what we're going to use the money for. You know, I still think if we take and look at all the wages at 3.5%, you know, in the past we've done 3.5%. Look at that and see what impact that has on the reduction in expenses, how that adds to the revenue to different lines.
The reason to bring it up was to have this discussion, and so that's what we had, you know, everybody's had a chance to weigh in. I think we're still relatively early in the process. We still have a month to go before we have to finalize it, and hopefully some of these numbers will come out and we can, you know, dig more into that. I mean, I'm comfortable with what Frank suggested. I think 8.01 is conservative, and I think that we could go to the 04, 05, or 06 that you suggested. We talked about sidewalks. That could be a big one. You know, there's a lot of things we talked about tonight that could go into this. You know, and I just think the discussion has to be had.
I agree, and that's why I bring up, let's look at 3.5% on wages to see how much additional dollars that does for the revenues.
If that's realistic, yeah. And thanks for the lesson.
It's in here, Scott. Money we paid for.
So what would be a number that she could put into that for right now, so we can wind this part up?
I'm fine with that number you recommended. My only thoughts are, because we haven't sat down for the goal setting, we don't know exactly what projects we have, how far out they are, and I think once we see that list in front of us, we're going to have more of an urgency on certain projects. My thought is to always shoot a little bit higher and back that up once you have the goal setting. And if we can reduce it down, we're better off. But I'd rather have it that way than have the goal setting and then find out there's projects that we determine that need to be done sooner than later, and now we can't balance our budget.
So what's your number, Ryan?
So that's what I was thinking, maybe we should do 8.04, 8.05 instead of 8.01 for right now. See where it goes.
I would be fine with that. I'd be guessing outside of that because I just don't have the experience in those numbers that tight.
Well, keep in mind in 2 years, our 2015 bonds come off the books, so that's other money that will go into the GRF and some back to the sewer.
I know that all of us, want to do the right thing, and we don't want to be the bank. We don't want to take more than what we need to give our citizens the infrastructure that they deserve. The frustration part of being a council member at times is that we have safety issues that we can't afford to address. So we wait for, public money, we wait for grants to come through that can take years and years, but we can't address the safety issues. We have been very frugal for the last few years, but another elephant in the room, we're only a few years out before our firemen, that are all 100% volunteer, we're gonna have to start thinking about paid firemen. And we don't have the funds, even though we have the money in there right now, minus your 25%, if they have their operating budget would be over $1 million a year, we'd be in trouble in 4 years. We'd be in trouble in 3 years, even with the bonds that are coming out. And we're trying to keep up with just streets. We're trying to keep up with infrastructure. I know that our sewers are there, but we still have to think about improvements. If we get any more industrial that wants to move in, is that going to push us over the edge again where we have to add to that? And then think about the money that we have to spend there. So in my mind, I like to be frugal and I don't want to raise taxes. I have 3 jobs, so, money to me is a big deal. But in the same sense, I don't want to be behind the 8 ball all the time where we're trying to, wait for a bond to come out so we can fix something that's been needed fixed for 3 to 5 years. So I think we should go, you're looking, even if you do from the 801 to the 805, you're only looking at what, 30,000? Not even 30,000, maybe 25,000. So $25,000 doesn't go very far, folks. So, I'm not saying to go all the way to 811, but I think in my mind, we'd be around the 807 mark, which would bring us, to 37,000, just so we can do one more project and do it right for the safety for the residents.
Dan, you're right. The fire department, I thank them guys every day for what they save the taxpayers.
A ton of money.
Right now, we have, 11 officers, and it costs us about 1.8 million. It's gonna take 3 times that for a fire department. So you're looking at $5 to $6 billion additional per year. That's more than our current budget.
Right.
And we can't exceed that because of those limits on general revenue total of $8.10. We never can do that. So some things need to change in the state to allow us for something like that. But no, we can't do it. There's a reason why Bettendorf is still paid and volunteer both. Because not even Bettendorf, who's got the golden pot, can float it. So I don't know why anybody would think the city elders can float it.
You made great points, Dan, and very eloquently. I would be in support of 8.07. If that's the number you throw out, I'm good with that.
And then that gives her a fighting chance of taking care of our wish list, taking care of the department heads. And I don't think we can go much lower, to be honest. But I'm with you, Brian. I'm very conservative too. Don't think I'm not, but I'm so frustrated up here as a councilman because I want to help our city. I want to help our folks, but we can't even fix sidewalks. We can't even fix, Lincoln because we don't have the funds to do it. We're waiting and waiting and waiting, and I'm proud too that we have the second lowest besides Donahue, second lowest in Scott County for our taxes. But what do we have to show for that? You know what I mean? And where are we going to go with that right now? Because if we stay on the course that we are now, we're just going to keep going backwards. Or if we can get ahead of this and, improve the parks, improve the infrastructure, be ready, with Tony with the sewer structures, where we can get that extra person to come in with an industrial that's going to help us out on our taxes. That's really where we should be thinking right now in my mind.
Well, if you look at this proposed budget, if I understand this right, our general GRF is at $6.84. So we have a little while until we get the $8.10 because our debt levy and all that's not calculated in at $6.84 or the $8.10 limit by the state. But if you get too aggressive, we're going to be knocking on that door forward too fast. And then we're gonna have to cut stuff that's gonna be even more painful. You know, if you wanna raise it, I'm not opposed to a little bit, but we sure as God better line item to specific projects.
And I feel even at 807, we can justify this to our residents. I think we can show them where the money's gonna go, and they're gonna say, yep, we get it. We don't like it, but we understand it and we get it.
If they're line item to specific projects. I mean, right now, we're looking at a budget, we don't even know what our actual costs are this year.
But I feel that Nevada's asking us for a number so she can really go at it. Right now, there's too many, we don't know what you guys want us to do. So if we give them the leverage that they're asking for, then I think she can come back even next time we meet, and we're gonna have a lot better picture. Right now, they're coming to us and asking us where we gotta be.
Well, we can raise it. What we have to come up with is a maximum levy. Doesn't mean by the time we get all through this that we hit that.
Right.
And that's a forgotten thing in this process. We got to come up with a max tax levy, worst case scenario. But that doesn't mean we have to settle on that number.
So then why not go right to the 811? That's your max.
It's illegal, it's 810.
Okay, 810.
So we are at our max consolidated general fund levy at the 6.84. There's nothing that we can do, but we can go to the 8.11 that's on your options sheet, because that is the 8.11 in that scenario is when you add in your ag fund, your liability, property and self-insurance, FICA and IFRS if you choose to levy that, your debt service, all of those things are outside of the 8.1 max of the combined general fund limit. That limit is already set for us at 6.84 this year. We can't go higher than that in any way, but we can levy additional on liability, property and self-insurance. We can levy on FICA and IFRS. Those are our options. That's where we can change. We can't change the ag fund levy, and we can't change the debt service levy because those are set. So the only things that we can change the amount that we levy is that liability and property and self-insurance or the FICA and IFRS.
So if we've got to pick a number, then why not use that 811 instead of 807? And we can always go backwards. That's the point I'm making. And then we have that list, because I don't want to approve any tax increase without an exact reason why. I want line item for line item of why they're there, but.
Right, that's all I've been saying for the last half hour.
So 811,
I'm good.
You know, and I ask myself, and there's a lot of people in this community that have lived here quite a while. I look at, over the last 10 years, my property tax has gone up almost 50%. What gain did I benefit from my property taxes going up almost 50%? Other than being penalized by the way the assessor does it, because of recent home sales, they're going to have to escalate the prices on houses that are 10 and 15 years old. So me personally, what have I gained from my property taxes going up about 50% in that time frame? And I don't have a fixed income. Think of those people.
yeah. Just remember, your property taxes went up, so have wages, and our cost of running the city.
%50.
15 years?
Not even that.
So would we be comfortable with 810 or 811 for her to punch in for now to move this budget farther forward?
Yep. Yes. It's 811.
811.
Dan?
I was at 807, but
This is max levy.
we can always go down. So yes, we can cut. So 811's fine.
Brian?
No, for the max levy, I don't have a problem at 811.
Okay. That's a consensus then. Does that conclude our, for today? All right.
One last thing. Nevada, can you get all the council members how the wages come come out of what funds for the individuals?
Yes.
You know, I don't know if you guys have ever seen those.
Yeah, I gotta look at it again.
If you want personnel, put it in the wish list and line it, so we got something to.
And how,
It's in the
and
wish
how they'll
list
be
and
paid.
it's in the line items that we haven't gone over, but it's in the wish list that I just sent out to.
Right, Brian, and how they're gonna be paid.
But in all fairness, when we just get this tonight,
Well, it's just a starting point. So do I hear a motion to adjourn so we can have a 5-minute break?
second.
Motion by Yossi, second by Doctor to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Our committee of the whole is adjourned at 7:21. There'll be a 5-minute recess and we will start our regular council meetings. Thank you.